The Russian military is taking chips from dishwashers and refrigerators to fix their military hardware because there are no semiconductors anymore. Russia's industry is in tatters.
So I think it's just over a year ago that Ursula von der Leyen said that Russians were taking computer chips and microchips from washing machines to use in their military equipment, that the Russian economy was in tatters, and this sort of gloating speech from her, kind of disturbing. I just want to show you guys something. This is a huge diesel locomotive engine, but what it's pulling is interesting. What it's pulling is the Soyuz 2.1B rocket, and that rocket is going to launch Russia's Luna 25 mission into space, and that mission is going to try and find water on the south pole of the lunar surface. Now you've got to ask yourself, how many microchips from washing machines and microwaves, Ursula, do you think it took to build this? And then you got to ask yourself, why does the Western narrative allow such ludicrous propaganda and misinformation from somebody like von der Leyen, who claims to be the defender of freedom of speech and an advocate for open discourse, but bans media from Russia? Maybe it's because they don't want anyone to see this type of thing. These vast infrastructure projects like the Vostochny Cosmodrome here in Russia's Far East, 7,000 kilometers east of Moscow. Next stop, Japan. Maybe that's why Ursula wants you to believe that this sort of stuff isn't happening. Seek out where you get your news. Challenge it. Ask questions. And most importantly, ask who wants you to believe what they want you to believe and why. For now, goodbye from Cosmodrome in Russia's Far East. Thanks for watching and listening.
If you think the United States should be supporting Ukraine in the fight against Putin, raise your hand. Nobody.
For nearly 18 months, Ukraine has stood against its Russian invaders, rallying support for its troops by embracing last year's battlefield victories in Kiev, Kharkiv, and Kherson regions. Those wins carried beleaguered Ukrainians through a winter of airstrikes on civilian infrastructure and a brutal and symbolic battle for Bakhmut, the eastern city that fell to the Russians in May. Throughout, Ukrainian officials and their Western partners hyped up a coming counteroffensive, one that, buoyed by a flood of new weapons and training, they hoped would turn the tide of the war. But 2 months after Ukraine went on the attack, with little visible progress on the front, and a relentless, bloody summer across the country, the narrative of unity and endless perseverance has begun to fray. The number of dead, untold thousands, increases daily. Millions are displaced and see no chance of returning home. In every corner of the country, civilians are exhausted from a spate of recent Russian attacks, including strikes on a historic cathedral in Odessa, a residential building in Kryvyi.
О, слышно, слышно. Ебать!
Уебать!
Бля! Охуеть!
And a blood transfusion center in the Kharkiv region. Ukrainians, much in need of good news, are simply not getting any. Ukraine does not disclose its military casualty counts, but everyone shares stories, she said, of new soldiers at the front lasting just 2 or 3 days. The defenders of our country should be professionals, she said. I'm really sad, she added. We, Ukrainians, did not deserve this destiny. These scenes are unfolding a world away from Kiev, the capital, where civilians, somewhat protected by strengthened air defenses, often hardly even react to air raid sirens. But even here, painful signs of the war lurk everywhere. On park benches, freshly wounded soldiers being treated in the capital sip coffee and smoke cigarettes before returning to their hospital beds. They watch as civilians stroll by, dogs and babies in tow. Many other men in the same park are missing limbs. And Victor's Facebook is flooded with photos of soldiers who did not make it home at all. The images haunt him so much he no longer likes to check his phone. It's too depressing, he said. The latest fight has been grueling. One day, it took his unit 7 hours to move forward just 400 meters, about a quarter of a mile, and that was quite fast. We've all got these guys coming back from the front line without limbs. Looking at a husband who was in a wheelchair, I want the price they paid to be reasonable. Otherwise, it's just useless, what they went through. Given the choice now, Prorector said he would not sign up again. They are taking everyone and sending them to the front line without proper preparation. I don't want to be in the company of unmotivated people. Others like him are mainly enraged at Russia, but they also aren't afraid to criticize Ukraine. Last week, President Volodymyr Zelensky acknowledged that a government audit of recruitment centers discovered revolting practices among corrupt officials. One soldier who goes by the call sign Positive and is recovering at a hospital in Kiev after suffering concussions in Kherson and Bakhmut said people profiting off the war should be sent to the front line. Yulia Paltseva, 36, a receptionist in Kiev, said she has been shocked by how residents of Kiev still party and socialize. Her boyfriend is at the front and will soon be transferred to fight near Bakhmut, she said. All those dancing and smiling people should remember that there are those soldiers, like my boyfriend, in the trenches without any rotations and being shelled every day. In Kryvyi, a doctor, Valeria Maslyanki, 58, sighed as she looked up at a damaged apartment this week. Just one entrance over from a section of the building destroyed in a strike last month. A gaping hole sits where her neighbors used to live. Outside, a pile of flowers and stuffed animals memorializes them. Already thinking ahead to winter, she fears her windows will not be replaced by the time temperatures start to drop. She is tired and sees no end in sight. I want to go to the sea, she said wistfully, but the Russians took all of our seas. Pravdinik said that he fears that the attack was just the beginning of more strikes on this industrial city. He lives around the corner, and each time he passes the ruined building, he said, I feel sorry for us Ukrainian civilians. We have to suffer so much.